Greetings, friends, and welcome to today's class on meditation as part of our day-long International Day of Yoga celebration. It's a great joy to come together. My name is Tyagi Dian, and I serve here at the Online with Ananda Outreach Ministry in Ananda Village, and it's my great honor and joy to come together and share a little bit on this great science and art of meditation. You know, each one of us, we are aware of it or not, is motivated on a very deep level by the expansion of our soul. We're motivated to expand our state of awareness. And whether that is translated in acquiring more possessions, chasing after a larger bank account, getting the promotion or a bigger family, all this outward sort of accumulation is an outward manifestation of an inner longing to experience life on the greatest and highest level. And this almost innate yearning to experience life to the fullest, to reach and experience our highest potential, underlies all of our yearning in this world. And yet, when we pursue the fulfillment of this yearning outwardly, through material desires and goals, we will find that we're always subject to the sort of leveling effect of duality. Every up, there's a down. Every success, there's a corresponding failure. Any forward advancement will correspond in something holding us back. And this can easily breed frustration, discouragement, sort of a sense of what's the point of all of this? You know, what's the point of my life? What am I really doing? And these answers cannot be found no matter how much we experience life on outward terms, but only until we reverse the searchlights of our heart. We begin to inquire these questions within and asking our higher nature, asking the universe, asking the divine, to begin guiding our lives to reveal to us the true meaning of this existence. And so this yearning, this inner call to rise, exists within each and every one of us, that we want to expand, but we have yet to find a way to truly expand, to find a consistent growth into that potential. I would like to begin with a beautiful story that I think illustrates this very perfectly. Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, once had a dream when he was a young boy. And in this dream, he saw a very busy marketplace. And for anybody who has been to India or who currently lives in India, you can probably really feel the intensity of this marketplace, being overcrowded with people, overrun with animals, the noise, the smog, the dust. It was just so oppressive in how intense it was. And Yogananda was looking at this sort of scene playing out and seeing how intense people were trying to haggle the best price, and shopkeepers trying to get the best price, and, fellow marketeers were, elbowing each other trying to get through. And it was a disturbing, almost unsettling sight. And occasionally, somebody would pass by Yogananda's vision, stop, and look at something behind Yogananda, and gasp with thrill, with awe. And their face was filled with light and aspiration, and Yogananda heard this person softly say, "Oh, how beautiful. How I long to be in that place." But then doubt assailed them. Oh, how too great of a journey that is. And they sort of sank into that doubt and returned back to the multitudes. And again, a person would come occasionally, would stop, gaze, and feel that awe inspiration would fill them. But again, the journey seemed too great, and they would return back to the multitudes and to the hubbub of the marketplace. And after a few times, Yogananda finally was curious himself. What are these people looking at? And what do they think is too far to accomplish? And so he turned around and he saw this beautiful, majestic mountaintop, so far removed from the restless sort of commotion of the world around him in this marketplace. And on top of this mountain, he saw a pristine garden, lush with vegetation, flowers, and succulents, and all this beautiful, pure life. And he felt within himself well up that inspiration. He felt that his energy was rising up to his brain and just wanting to experience that unconditioned thrill that is untouched by the world behind him, to feel that pure enjoyment. And then that doubt entered his mind. Oh, how too great of a journey. It's much too far to accomplish. And he found his energy starting to sink again, and he caught himself. And he said with great determination, yes, it may be too great of a journey to accomplish in a single step, but I'd rather die trying than return back to this dusty marketplace. And dear friends, this dream of Yogananda's exemplifies our day-to-day experience, is that within us we have two currents of energy, one that is sort of naturally, comfortably being drawn out in the world into a territory, into experiences that are very familiar to us, trying to elbow our way through life, trying to strive to get our piece of the pie. And yet, the more we strive in this outward way, the more restless and dissatisfied we become. But there is that towering mountaintop. There is that superconscious experience of the soul, that higher consciousness which awakens our true understanding of who we are and what our life's purpose is, but most importantly, how to find true joy, how to find that kind of happiness that is never-ending, that is unconditioned, and all-satisfying. And so these two currents are constantly vying for our attention. We hear the noise of the world. We're being drawn by its attractions. And yet that soft voice of the soul is calling for us to rise, to take up the journey of meditation, of the spiritual path, to finally awaken in that high potential of the superconsciousness. So what is the superconsciousness? It is that awareness that we too are a part of all that is, that our life is not of our own doing, that we are manifestations of pure consciousness. All great saints of all traditions, once they have found the truth within themselves, they were able to perceive the truth all around them, and they all have come back to express and share with humanity what they have found, that God is truth, God is light, God is love, God is that peace of the soul. And no saint who has found that high state of consciousness ever returned and said, oh, the superconsciousness is not what it's made out to be. You should return back to that marketplace and pursue your worldly desires, pursue your personal gains in life, and make firm your homestead. Every saint has come back and said, finding this joy within our own self, to experience ourselves as a pure manifestation of joy, is life's true purpose. And behind all our striving, we have this vague memory that we belong in that joy. That joy is our inherent reality. And because we have directed our efforts outwardly, we feel disconnected with that joy. And so we're looking for it. We look for it out in the possessions. We look for it in the relationships. We look for it in the work and the promotions. And it's almost as if the more we look for it outside ourselves, the more agitated and impossible it becomes to truly experience joy. Haven't you found that true in your own life? That after maybe months or years of intense striving, you finally accomplish what it is you set your heart out to accomplish. And it's like sand in your hands, just simply drifting away. And all the fulfillment, all the happiness that we sort of imposed or identified to that accomplishment drifted before our sight. And so this world It's like if we're trying to find happiness in this world, it's like trying to build a sandcastle on the beach, expecting it to last forever. But eventually the tides of change will come and level that elaborate castle that we put out a lot of energy to build. And so it is, friends, as we direct our energy outward, it's similar to the wind blowing on the surface of the sea, creating the waves of change. And so when we seek our happiness, when we seek our purpose, when we seek our identity and our self-worth in the things of this world, we are blowing this wind over the surface of our consciousness, creating waves which distort how we perceive ourselves and how we relate to the world around us. There's this beautiful analogy that really illustrates the practice of meditation, how it affects and changes our consciousness, and the state of awareness that it brings into our life, and that is of a lake. And if we can imagine a beautiful mountain lake, perfectly still, the full moon shining high above, and when the lake is perfectly calm, one can see the reflection of the moon perfectly. It's almost difficult to know whether you're looking up or down because it's almost identical from what's in the sky and what's being reflected in the water. But if you take a stone and you throw that stone into that clear lake, what's going to happen? It's going to create ripples. And the more restlessness, the more desires we harbor in our life, the more we condition our happiness on outward circumstances, the more those ripples become waves, and those waves deeply distort our perception or that reflection of that light within. That we are all beings of light. We all have the capacity to live in joy, to be free from limitation, to be in that state of consciousness which is ever expansive, ever curious, ever creative, filled with energy, filled with joy. That potential lies in each one of us, and it's truly up to us whether we want to do the work, the joyful work. It's a fun work. Sometimes it can be difficult. The path of meditation isn't easy, but it leads us to the greatest fulfillment. And if we take up that search and we embrace those practices which help still those waves of consciousness within, we will find blooming within our hearts that clear perception of a reality that the intellect cannot explain, that the conscious mind cannot comprehend. As it says in the Bible, the light shineth and the darkness comprehended it not. And so the ways of the spiritual seeker cannot be sort of boiled down by the intellect. We have to feel it. We have to open ourselves to receive it. And as we do so, we find a knowing that is untainted by what the senses tell us, untainted by popular opinion. We know because we have experienced it ourselves. And that's the power of yoga. It isn't about a dogma. It isn't about a certain set of beliefs or even a set of practices. It's about your own personal direct perception of spirit, to awaken that direct perception in a way that's personally significant for you. Yogananda had a very interesting saying when he said, no two souls were created alike. Even though we are made from the same cloth of spirit, we are all that pure expressions of light. Each one of us will experience the divine, will experience this superconscious bliss in a way that's unique to our own karma, unique to our own manifestation. Isn't that beautiful? That we're not going to become some spiritual automaton as a result of our meditation. That we become the best and most fulfilled self for ourselves. We find that highest potential, which is really that invitation, the life we were meant to live in this incarnation. So embrace that. And meditation gives us practical techniques, as Nayaswami Devi read from Paramahansa Yogananda's, I can't think of the right book, Essence of Self-Realization. She said, yoga gives us the science of awakening our consciousness, and it provides us with the art. How do we practice the techniques to quiet the body, to relax the mind, to focus our energy, and to scientifically learn how to withdraw our energy from pouring out from the senses, from into the wastelands of this world, and withdrawing that energy back to our center, lifting that to the brain at the point between the eyebrows. That's the science. But the art is, how do we lead with that element of feeling? How do we introduce our heart's love? How do we open ourselves to receive and build that very dynamic, very real relationship with the divine, with our higher self? Because when we make it a personal relationship, when we make a personal relationship with the divine, we will find our capacity to feel that love, to feel that joy, to be healed from all trauma and challenge is truly limitless, is truly infinite, that we can be filled with the knowing that just as the great saints have expressed that joyous oneness, that union in God, we too can express it. A dear friend of mine, Naya Swami Jaya, he's a spiritual director of Ananda, India. He was once sort of approached by a group of young men who were very earnest in their curiosity of spiritual life and meditation. And they asked Jaya, "What powers have you gained from your practice?" And Jaya, seeing the sincerity in these curiosity seekers, he gave it serious thought. He didn't want to just say, "Oh, it's not about powers, it's about your devotion to God, about your self." He didn't intellectualize it. He wanted to answer sincerely. And so he said, "Meditation has given me the power to choose to be happy all the time." What a great power. Something that we can easily take advantage of or take for granted. But if we really meditate on that sentence and meditate on that state of consciousness that would allow us to be truly happy under all circumstances, what could be a better definition of freedom? What could be a better example of superconscious living? Because we live in a world of incredible change. The waves of turbulence, of change in this world today is very severe, very great, and we find around us incredible instability. So how do we find stability? How do we find that ability to truly stand unshaken with all the change around us? There's only one way, and that's to establish a firm connection with our own center, to recognize that we too are expressions of all that is, that this great life is a gift, this body is a gift. And if we fully take advantage of this opportunity and learn these practices of meditation, we can awaken in ourselves that consciousness which is unconditioned by circumstance. We can be joyful in every moment of our lives, infusing our work, infusing our relationships, infusing all that we do with that joy. As Paramahansa Yogananda said in his autobiography of a yogi, divine consciousness is center everywhere, circumference nowhere. Meaning, when we're in tune with the divine consciousness within, when we lift our consciousness to the superconscious joy within, we find that joy everywhere around us, that we magnetically draw from the ether, from our experiences, from seemingly inert matter, meaning and purpose, inspiration and joy, clarity and perception, anything we are looking for, anything that we need in order to take our next step spiritually, we will draw that to ourselves because we have withdrawn our energy and started to look within for our answers. And so I would invite you all to, if you haven't embraced the path of meditation, to truly give it some serious thought. Evaluate your life. And even for those who have been meditating possibly for many years, evaluate, where are you in your life? Are you happy? Are you satisfied with your current level of energy, your current level of happiness, your joy? Do you want to improve? Do you feel it's time to change? And if you do feel it's time to change, I invite you to look at your meditation practice, whether beginning or long time meditator, and look for ways to deepen that, to expand that, and to take that level of stillness a step deeper. Because when we can live in that stillness of the soul, what we can accomplish in this world is truly unimaginable. As Jesus said, seek ye first this superconscious joy of spirit, and all these things in this world shall be added unto you. That when we put our lives in harmony with that divine truth which permeates all creation, we find all creation responding to our spiritual efforts, supporting us, helping us, bestowing blessings, revealing that cosmic love which is inherent in every atom of creation. And we find our life so rich, so abundant, that it doesn't really matter what happens to us outside. That we find that our meaning and purpose in life originates within our own self. And so I'd like to now go into some meditation practices that will help us along this journey, because again, the purpose and goal of meditation is stillness. And how do we arrive to that stillness? It's through perfect relaxation. And so all the yogic teachings has this as their aim, that if we can learn to relax the body and mind and focus our energy up the spine to the brain, it's a natural consequence to begin to feel that superconscious joy, that we do not need to push our way into the superconscious. We must learn how to relax and receive the superconscious. And that is, in essence, the teachings of meditation, that we do not try to manufacture something that's not already in existence, but we simply harmonize ourselves through the practice of certain techniques so that we can be in harmony, we can be aligned with the state of consciousness that is joyful, that is harmonious. And so the first step for a practice in meditation is, of course, relaxation. And it's interesting when we look at relaxation, it's not only sort of sinking on the couch and just sort of letting go of the day, it's a dynamic relaxation. It's that kind of relaxation where we free our energy from being occupied in restless movements, in the thought process, in preoccupation with our responsibilities, outward consciousness, and we relax that energy that has been invested in outward consciousness. And we slowly begin to withdraw that energy back to our center. And so in order to do this, we need to have the right posture, because unless if we're sitting erect with the spine straight, our muscles will continue to be engaged, keeping the body erect. How can we relax if the muscles are tense? And so the first step to meditation is to find a posture where you can comfortably sit with a straight spine. And so wherever you are now, feel free to adjust yourself so that you're sitting squarely on your sit bones. Your spine is nice and straight, natural curves of the spine, nothing exaggerated, but just rest with the straight spine and try to feel that you're able to let go, letting the skeletal system support you. And so a nice element to posture is promoting an open heart, because again, meditation is much more than just a science. It is how do we awaken and expand our capacity to feel on a deep intuitive level. Yogananda defined intuition, interestingly, as calm feeling directed upwards. And in order for us to meditate deeply, we have to have an awakened sense of intuition. What is intuition? It is a knowing of something that is not seen or perceived from the senses. It is that ultra sensitive attunement to the subtle reality of spirit. And so we have to lead with the heart. And so one way to promote that with our posture, which is really the fundamental sort of our foundation of meditation, is palms open, resting on our thighs at the junction of our thighs and abdomen. And by doing this, we open our chest and our heart, is promoted to be open. Great saints who live in the spine, keep their spine erect, and you can just see them as they move forward in life, leading with the heart. And they're not slouched forward, but they're open. They're open to receive from life, open to feel the blessings coming through all life's experiences. Swami Kriyananda walked like this. You can see pictures of Yogananda with his chest up. And it's a very subtle thing that happens when we keep our spine straight and our chest open. Because, again, we're talking about two currents here. There's the current that wants to flow down the spine, out into the world, into matter consciousness. And then there's that current that is trying to draw itself up the spine into the point between the eyebrows. And so by keeping our spine straight and our focus lifted at the point between the eyebrows, which I'll get into more later, we are promoting the buoyancy, the natural rising of our consciousness. And when we feel that rise of consciousness, we feel better. Our state of mind is happier. We're more joyful. We're more open. Our perspective is broader. It's when our energy drops down the spine that we close off from life, that we feel small and insignificant and insecure, disconnected. And so one could say that our culture today is unfortunately the consequence of a lot of energy moving down people's spines. The selfishness we see, the anger we see, the judgment we see, the intolerance we see. And really the only solution is if people like you and me make that effort to lift the energy up the spine, awaken that higher consciousness in our own life, and share that consciousness with all that we meet. Because if we can be a channel for the light, a channel for the superconsciousness, we will find little by little our little environment will begin to change. The people in our lives will begin to be affected by this new state of awareness that's being presented to them. And it's sort of the butterfly effect, the ripple effect that spreads wider and wider over time. It's not up to us, but what is up to us is our own effort to uplift the consciousness. And so our spine, our posture is really something we establish first to help promote that clear flow of energy up to the point between the eyebrows. Now, why do we focus there? Why do we lift our gaze to the center of the forehead at this point? Well, it's beautiful because we have the example of tradition, which we see that in all traditions they talk about the third eye in one way or another. Jesus said, "Let thine eye be single, and thy whole body will be filled with light." That when we can lift our consciousness to the point between the eyebrows and awaken this center of spiritual awareness, we find that we aren't this body, we aren't this personality, we aren't limited or affected by likes and dislikes, our desires and attachments, the circumstances that are constantly changing. We are expressions of the light. That we are pure beings manifesting this pure consciousness. It's only when our energy goes out in the world and we identify with outer realities do we begin to hymn and condition that pure consciousness to a much smaller reality. Meditation frees us from those conditions, helps awaken within us that direct perception of that light. But the spiritual eye, it's very interesting, and I don't want to get too much into the chakras per se, but it's very interesting to note that the spiritual eye, at the point between the eyebrows and the forehead, is the positive pole of the sixth chakra. Well, what's the negative pole? It's seated at the medulla oblongata, and this is the seat of the ego. And so the ego is I, me, mine consciousness. It's self-awareness, but it's all about me and my reality, my likes and dislikes, my desires, what I need from life. Why are people treating me like this? Our fingers are always turned towards ourselves. By the spiritual eye, we perceive the true self. We see the self which is embodied in all beings, that unified consciousness which expands our sense of awareness to that understanding that we are a part of all that is, that there is one life beneath the surface of all creation, and that as we merge into that consciousness, we find true brotherhood, true sisterhood. We find every soul, every aspect of creation as an expression of that same one life. And so meditation, quite beautifully, it's the process of transferring the I consciousness to thou consciousness, to the little I, to the great self. And so the more we can relax the body, the more we can then further interiorize our energy and begin to relax our identification with this temporal life, of this personality, of this body, and begin to merge into that singular life, which is eternal, which is ever blessed, ever joyful. And so it's quite a beautiful process. And I love how meditation starts with the most obvious and then moves to the more subtle. And so sitting upright, we gently lift our gaze to the point between the eyebrows. And again, this helps to promote that rising of energy, that rising of our inspiration, the opening of our heart, and eventually that booming perception of who we are in truth. And so as we settle into our posture, we begin with some breathing exercises to help further relax the body. And this is something that Paramahansa Yogananda taught all his students, all true seekers who came to him for guidance. And it's the double breath with tension. And so we're going to inhale with a short followed by a long inhalation through the nostrils, expanding our full lung capacity, filling our body with prana because, we inhale with the oxygen, but also life force. Then we're going to exhale from the mouth and the nostrils with a double breath. And so as we inhale, as we're seated, we're going to tense the whole body to a vibration, consciously tensing every muscle of the body, fully tense, fully aware of drawing that energy in as we tense. And as we exhale, we're going to consciously release that energy and offer that energy back from whence it came. And what this practice does, it's very interesting, is that we are consciously tensing and consciously relaxing. So when we relax, are we only relaxing the tension that we ourselves have generated? No. We are relaxing also the tension we are subconsciously holding on to, that we create a flood of relaxation, letting go of that pent-up energy. And so we can deepen our ability to relax into our seated position and begin that interior process of observing the breath and going more deeply into our meditation practice. And so let's begin. Let's do the double breath with tensing. So sitting upright, our spine straight. You can close your eyes and gently uplift the gaze to the point between the eyebrows. And inhale with the double breath and tense. Relax. Exhale, release the tension from every muscle. Relaxing into your posture. Again, inhale, tense. Consciously relax. Again, inhale. And before we do our last round, try to feel as you inhale, you're consciously drawing in energy from the surrounding universe, focusing that energy in the form of tension, vibrating every muscle as best you can. And as you exhale, like a flood, offer the flood of energy back to its source, releasing as much as you can, as deeply as you can, feeling the stillness, the release of subtle as well as obvious tension. One last round, inhale. And release. With your eyes upturned, resume breathing naturally through the nostrils. bring your awareness to the flow of your breath, observing its current as it comes and goes on its own accord. In this observation is the first step of relinquishing the hold of the ego, of the little self, freeing our awareness to soar upwards in spirit. The more we can let go of trying to control the breath, developing that kind of trust that our life is being sustained by a greater intelligence, that we can relax into that flow, trusting that it will come when we need to breathe, and we will exhale when we need to. Placing no demands on the breath, just allow it to flow through you. Being just the observer, allowing that fresh breeze of breath to blow over your consciousness, soothing your mind, deepening your relaxation, opening your heart. Continuing with your eyes closed, I'm going to guide us now into another technique which will help us focus our mind and relax our thoughts. Even count breathing, the measured breath, a pranayama practice of inhaling to a certain count, holding at the same count, and exhaling. An important point of this technique is to find a rhythm we can relax into. We're not straining to increase our lung capacity, but we're able to relax into the flow, freeing our consciousness to concentrate more deeply at the point between the eyebrows. The seat of superconsciousness, the seat of spiritual joy in the body. So let us just continue to observe the breath with our gaze upturned, focusing deeply at the point between the eyebrows, concentrating on the flow of breath. And let's inhale deeply together, filling our lungs. Exhale completely, leading with relaxation, inner awareness. Let's inhale to a count of 7. Hold for 7. Exhale 7. Inhale. Hold, deeply looking upwards, feeling the stillness. Exhale, opening yourself to receive. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Feeling with your heart, lifting it upwards. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Resume breathing naturally, focusing upwards. Your upward gaze should be relaxed, gentle. Focus on the flow of breath as you inhale. Identify where you feel the cool current of the air entering your nostrils, and focus on that point where you feel the breath. You focus on the breath while simultaneously keeping our eyes uplifted, placing our awareness on the breath wherever we feel it. Maybe in the tip of our nostrils, higher the nasal cavity. Relax into this flow, allowing it to wash over your consciousness, helping you to settle more into your meditation. Yogananda Ji would often say stillness is the altar of spirit. Be open for that stillness, however you may feel it. Maybe the breath becomes so calm that it ceases to flow for a moment. Feel that stillness. Be open to receive it, to relax into it. Continuing to observe the breath, which naturally draws our awareness within. And to help us focus on the breath, giving our minds a tool to develop concentration. Mentally follow your inhalation with the sound of Hong. H-O-N-G, Hong. Mentally following the inhalation, following the exhalation to the sound of Saw. Hong as you inhale, Saw as you exhale. Engross your inner focus with the breath in this eternal mantra. I am spirit. I am this joy. Continuing to gaze upwards, looking with the heart for any opening where you feel connected to that joy. Let us go into our Hong Saw practice for about 5 minutes together. If the mind wanders, just bring it back to the breath and mantra, keeping your eyes upturned, trying to relax into this natural process of observing the breath, following it inwardly with the sound of Hong, Saw. Like a mighty river, offer your thoughts, your feelings into your breath, allowing it to carry it upward to the great sea of spirit, offering yourself at that point